Welcome to another episode of The Corner Booth, the official podcast of restaurantowner.com. Today, the restaurant industry is changing faster than ever. Learn from successful independent restaurant operators and other industry leaders as they share best practices that will help you engage your team, delight your guests, and grow your business.
Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of Corner Booth. I'm Chris Tripoli with restaurantowner.com. And today I'm going to bring you a program that's going to be really interesting, going to make you hungry. We're going to be talking about breakfast brunch concepts. We're going to talk about growing multiple unit. We're going to talk about how to then tweak it into an express unit and growth through franchising. We're going to do all of that because we're talking about Sunrise Social. And we've got today Sunrise Social's founder and franchisor, Mr. Aaron Anderson. Aaron, thank you so much for taking some time and visiting with us. Welcome to Corner Booth.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
It's great to have you. I can't wait to hear about the concept creation, concept development, etc. But before we jump into that, why don't you tell our listeners just a little bit about you and how you got connected to this industry? How did it all start for you?
Sure. So back in 2020, I was looking to jump into the restaurant industry. And at the time, I didn't want to start from the ground up. And I figured, what better way to jump into a business if it's already established and have systems and things like that in place? Because as you know, starting a business from the ground up, it's a lot of moving parts. So I figured I could skip some steps and not skip steps because that's just not the right word, but just go into something where it's already proven. So I became a franchisee of the original hot dog factory, which I believe originated in Atlanta, Georgia. So I became a franchisee and was, learning a lot about the restaurant industry, got one location, ended up with 5 of those locations, which one of them or 2 of them was in Subaru Park, home of the Philadelphia Union soccer stadium. And then, I was absolutely inspired and started to develop a passion for the restaurant industry. So from there, I went on to, a ghost kitchen, the ghost kitchen concept, because this was all around COVID, by the way.
Oh yeah. You had to work through COVID.
So here's the thing. So in 2020, when I became a franchisee, I opened up my first location the day before they shut the country down.
Ouch.
Right. So I expanded to, like I told you, 5 locations, but then I also was looking for a pivot at that time because nobody was able to come and sit in into the restaurants and so forth.
Uh-huh.
Well, I ended up starting a ghost kitchen concept, still a long while having the original hot dog factory, but it was called Chef Ruth's Kitchen. I opened up 2 locations. We did like 5 different concepts out of one kitchen because that's the concept of the ghost kitchen.
And was this in the Philadelphia area?
Yes.
Good area to do it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Philadelphia is a big food city, big food town. And it's, it was, again, the opportunity was there. So I did that. And then also from there, I became a franchisee of Rita's. And I'm not sure if you heard of them, but it's I want to say a water ice chain franchise.
Uh-huh.
So I had 2 locations of those, of the Rita's. And ultimately what I did was I learned the restaurant. I'm already familiar with business. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, but I learned the restaurant industry from the inside out.
Yes.
So therefore it gave me enough knowledge to say, you know what, I took everything I had and sold it and invested into starting my own franchise. And here we are at Sunrise Social.
So that's how you did it. We're hearing more and more of that. And I think for our listeners to make a note, there's a lot of interest in people entering our industry and not necessarily entering our industry because they're developing something on their own, but doing it that way, having an interest in the restaurant industry, having that drive to want to operate a concept, but wanting to join something that maybe already provides a foundation It can give them direction, information, systems. So they choose to go into a franchise, much like you got started. Okay. So I follow you, but then obviously after you did that, and you did it a couple times, Hot Dog Factory, you did it with Rita's, then obviously came the interest in wanting to develop it on your own, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I developed a passion for it.
So tell us about that then. So that's what became Sunrise Social. How long did that process take? You know, people are always baffled about when you decide you want to do something, how does the idea become reality? How long it takes to raise money, find the good location. So could you walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, so I think, well, not I think, but from 2000 to 2023 was that time frame of me becoming the franchisee for the original hot dog factory. Everything I just explained, that it took me about 3 years to do those things.
Uh-huh.
And then in 2023 is when I started. I had a concept called Brunchaholics, and then Brunchaholics evolved into Sunrise Social. So that's around the time frame, about 3 years to get to where I was like, okay, I want to develop my own franchise.
Okay. So now you're on that side. You're developing the idea, the menu, putting the team together, creating the systems, etc. And did this work with an existing location that you took over, or did you go find some brand new location that you had to build out?
Yeah, that's the way that I did it. These are all brand new. Like the concept is built from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that. What's the size? How many does it seat? How do you operate? Hours of operation?
Sure. So Sunrise Social is 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I have one location that's about close to 2,500 square feet. And then I have another location that's 3,500 square feet. And then Sunrise Social Express, it's 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And that one is about 30, I think about 30, 3,700 square feet as well.
Ah, okay. And that one is very interesting to me because you obviously combine the menu, the expanded hours, inside seating, but then don't you have like an express pickup or drive-through window?
Yeah, drive through. Yeah. So the express concept came more so of I just try to fill a void. But when you look at the Northeast, there are not many Waffle House concepts
Uh-huh.
in the Northeast. And Waffle House is one of my favorite places to eat. But I figured, why not take something, make it fast casual? So we got Waffle House, and then I love Raising Cane chicken tenders. And I said, how about if I can combine both of these concepts, make it fast casual, and I have a location that has a drive-through, so we'll call it, an express. So that's kind of how that idea came about.
Well, you got two really well-established inspirations.
That's think about it. When you see it, it's achievable, and it's like, hey, if I do it correctly, you could be just as big, if not bigger.
Boy, no kidding. Okay, now Waffle House, for people listening, I'm sure they're already visualizing how do they choose to build the, their hash browns. You know, I'm an all the way guy. Okay. I can't decide. I can't pick and choose. So they have to put the chili, the cheese, the onion. We have to go all the way. If it's me in those little booths, everyone else I know can be a little bit more particular, but everyone's got their own way to do it. Then you go ahead and you throw in Raising Cane's, and there are no choices, no decisions to make. You got to love the simplicity. Here's the box. It's good. You don't have to make a decision. No one's going to ask you any questions. No add-ons. You go.
And they executed so well.
Uh-huh. So that's kind of interesting. So the Northeast part of the country, you started in Philadelphia, you're in New Jersey. There was a little void in that breakfast market. Good. So you thought to fill it. And so how does a menu like that work? Kind of give us some of your specialties, the blending of chicken tenders, but sort of a Waffle House breakfast. What did you wind up with? And what are the items that seem to be working the most?
Sure. So we focus a lot on the chicken tenders and the smash burgers, right? And Waffle House is an inspiration. However, Sunrise Social Express has its own identity. I was just using it for inspiration, but
Yeah,
Waffle House doesn't sell chicken and waffles. We do.
right.
Waffle House doesn't sell shrimp and grits. We do. They don't sell fish and grits. We do. So, it's again, it's inspired by that, but Sunrise Social Express it has its own identity, and it's fast casual with the twist. Like it's kind of creating its own lane.
So that means people walk in, obviously there's seating, but they'll order at the counter, and then do you run them the food when it's ready, or do they get a number and you page them?
Sure. So for operational purposes, when you walk into an express, you order at the counter, you get a number that you'll go to your table, you sit it at the table, and then the runner will bring the food to you at the table once it's done.
Well, you mentioned some really good things. I mean, shrimp and grits and fish and chicken and waffles, of course, smash burgers. So that sounds like the brunch lunch part. D How does the breakfast work? I mean, of course, you can just add an egg to any of this and I'm in. I mean, put an egg on top of a smash burger, I would call it breakfast, but what are your common breakfast items?
I mean, we have French toast, pancakes,
Okay.
scrambled eggs, or I mean eggs, grits, potatoes. So we have all day, breakfast for sure. And then we just hit with the lunch with the chicken tenders and the smash burgers and things like that. Fries, milkshakes.
And you mentioned breakfast is all day, so in the traditional units that open till 4, breakfast goes all till 4, and the express unit, it goes all day too?
Yeah, so the Sunrise Social, that's more of your sit down experience. You get an experience, you have a server. We not only do we have brunch items on there, but then we also sell things like lobster. So it's a different concept. And then you have the express, where it's a fast casual. Of course you can dine in, and then you have the drive through. So two totally different concepts, but similarities.
Exactly. Yeah, because 'cause I'd like to touch on that a little bit. We see a lot of that growing where people wanna build value in their brand, so obviously certain things like core menu, trade dress, the way you operate have to be the same, but we're seeing great success in allowing some flexibility so that as you grow, people can maybe do a little bit of identification to the local community. How do you balance that? How do you decide, like, what can be maybe broadened and what needs to stay core?
I think, focusing on the items and the things that do work. That's how I identify the core.
Okay.
Because it's proven, right?
Yes.
And then, just like anything, you can build it and hopefully it all works, but trial and error is the best teacher. And when you start to see things that don't work, that's what gives you the flexibility to say, well, maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll do that, maybe I'll add this, maybe I'll take away this, maybe I'll simplify things. So that's just pretty much the way that my mind works when it comes to that.
That reminds me of a concept I had the pleasure of working with years ago that when they were beginning to grow, they did that. They were a limited menu, casual concept, and they said that they identified things that really worked well and that had to be the core menu for one page. But then they had a smaller page insert, and they called that the community page. And so they allowed the local team to have seasonal. Obviously, they must have developed it for company approval first, but everyone could develop 4 or 5 items that were maybe in addition to the core that only worked in that area and that other areas didn't have to do. And they called it their community page. You made me think of that when you were talking about how you start with those core items, but then and when you wanna see if something else is gonna work in one particular area, you'll grow to that. And do you worry at all, since I know your next step is continued growth. And we want to get into that and how the initial franchisees, now franchisor of hopefully a bunch of franchises. But are you concerned with doing something like that that's good that might also then stretch some of the kitchen capability? Some things that might work might add ticket times or equipment requirements or tough kitchen training. Is that a concern at all?
I try not to expand the menu, but if I do, right, what I'll typically do is I'll take something that's already on the menu and just make a dish out of it, expansion in that way. But to add a whole new item, I think where we are now, menu wise, I think we're in a good space. But when you do add things, it does kind of stretch your ticket times, and it can just cause a little bit more of a setback more than moving forward. So if anything, when I expand the menu, I do try to take something that we already have and just expand it off of that. However, like, every, I want to say 45 days or so,
Yeah,
I do like a LTO.
sure.
So like in the Sunrise Social, the LTO that's coming up now is the seafood boil. So I'm going to do that, and then for the express, I'm going to do a chicken smash burger. So, I always play around
Nice.
with things, and and then if it goes well, then you keep it on the menu, and so forth. But that's to the extent that I change. I think we're very comfortable with the menu.
Boy, there's some very good points there that I hope everyone just noted, and that is, utilizing core menu items to cross-utilize to create others. And there's chicken in the house. Smash burgers are popular. See, I'm loving this. Chicken, smash, do that version. I get it. That earlier point that you mentioned, if you can stay with the same style of cooking and stay with the same core items, but just create different items with them, then you're not too concerned with operational difficulty. I hope people are making a note of that because there's some really good, successful creativity in the industry today. But if you look closely, it's doing it in this fashion where you're not trying to bring in a bunch of different products, different equipment, trying to get complicated. You have to stay simple and maybe do more with what you already have. And that's what I'm hearing you say, Aaron.
That is correct.
Well, that kind of gets us into marketing. You talked about the every 45 to 60 days with the LTOs, good limited time offers. How do you schedule those? Do you kind of plan seasonally? Do you have a small team that you engage with, or do you maybe have an outsourced marketing company that you work with in order to sort of plan the schedule and make those decisions?
Yeah, I have an outside marketing company that I plan with and make those decisions.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Well, it sounds like things have been working well, pretty well. Can we switch now to the people side of this? That's always a concern for people when they open new units or in different cities. I mean, here in Philadelphia and New Jersey. How do you find and build the management team? How are you structured, in a 7-day operation? Do you have multiple levels of management, or can you run this with like shift leads and one manager?
So Sunrise, yeah, you can run Sunrise Social with one manager and one shift lead for sure. Sunrise Social Express, you can run that with one manager and probably two shift leads. And also with the Express, something that I wanted to point out is conceptually this is being built so it can be 24 hours, 7 days a week. Like
Excellent.
that's the goal with the Express.
So right now it closes at 10, but what you really see is sort of that late night day part that kind of takes you from 10 to 6 in the morning and staying open 24/7.
Right, and it's mostly because of the location. It's in Vineland, New Jersey. However, like a location that I'm getting ready to do that's in Katy, Texas, like it's right off the freeway, and that's going to be an express, and it's going to that'll be 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Good for you. Okay, yeah, that I imagine that if it's got an interior restaurant, will that piece also stay open, or will it close and only the drive-through operates through the late night?
No, so the new one that's coming in Katy, that'll be open 24 hours, 7 days a week, just like Waffle House, right? Uh,
Uh-huh.
in Vineland, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., we have, the dine-in aspect of it, but from 6 to 10, we're doing takeout and drive-through.
Got it. Good luck with that. That sounds wonderful. I mean, I know of a few concepts. You're making me think of them now. Some diners, some delis, 24/7. And it does. I mean, it can really work if there is the market for that late night niche. So as you grow, do you see that as maybe being optional? I mean, in other words, if somebody does a multi-unit franchise agreement with you, some of their locations might be, I don't know, let's say they're more business related. So they're really heavy with that breakfast brunch. They might slow down at night. So will they have to do 24-hour, or will you let the 24-hour piece be optional?
Yeah, we're flexible for sure. However, that's the difference between Sunrise Social and Sunrise Social Express. And
Yeah.
if it was more of that, then we would say, okay, you know what? Sunrise Social from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 7 days a week may be the better option for this location.
Good thinking. So we talked a little bit about operations and management staff. I like the marketing plan. Now we're into the growth through franchising. Is the Katy, Texas location a franchisee?
That'll be a franchisee, and then also the two locations and the one in Cherry Hill and also Philadelphia. That's a franchisee as well.
Great. So, for people who are listening and are thinking that they might want to grow through franchising, let's spend a little bit of time talking about that. How do you're just kind of in the early stages. I mean, it's not like we're talking about someone who's already regional, with 40 or 50 locations, but just getting started. How do you select your franchisees?
I think it's more so, understanding how important your brand is, and you want to like for me, I want to make sure that someone has experience. They have the time, the effort, the energy, and the drive to put in the work to their locations, because it's very important.
Exactly. So this sounds like to me then that this is really more of an interview selection rather than just sort of accepting somebody because they're interested.
Absolutely. I mean, it's when you're looking at the long term opportunity here, you just want to make sure that you're building with the right team.
I hear you. So if they have that care for the brand, I guess what you're really looking for is more of that characteristic. Somebody told me once that the best franchisee really isn't someone who's looking to be in business for themselves. The
Mm.
best franchisee is somebody who kind of likes going to a business because it's already set. In other words, they're a good soldier. If you give me an order, I will charge the hill, and I'm happy doing it. They said that's a good franchisee. If someone comes to you and says, I've always wanted to be in business for myself, but I'd like to buy your franchise instead. Well, they might be the ones that challenge later or have their own ideas or bother you with changing purveyors. I want to add a sausage sandwich because my wife has a good recipe.
Yeah. That is spot on.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we got confirmation. So anybody who's listening, make a note of that. So yeah, they need to really fit the characteristic you're looking for. They got to have a love for your brand, not their own, and be able to execute daily. I get it. So selection is important. Help us understand the support. What kind of support from a franchisor is required that you do initially? And then once they open, what kind of ongoing support is required to support a franchisee?
Sure. So when you become a franchisee, you do training at the one of the stores, the corporate stores, and then also once you get ready to open up, we'll come down and do training, with your store and offer support for probably about a week, close to a week of training once you open up. And then after that, you'll have a consultant that'll be in touch with you, or you could be in touch with them, and they'll provide support pretty much throughout the whole term of the agreement. And we do things a little different. Again, I was a franchisee, so I know the type of support that I did receive. However,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to push the envelope a little bit and offer a little bit more support. And mind you, the support that I did receive, it wasn't bad, but I felt as though I could have used a little more. Um,
Okay.
so that's what I'm doing, offering a little bit. That's what we do. We offer a little bit more support, and we, make sure that we put everybody in the best position, all of our franchisees in the best position to win.
That's great. That's good. I like the fact that not only is there what you would assume, which is I'm going to provide you information, systems, take your key people, come do initial training, but I like the idea of the ongoing on-site visits, the advisement that is available. I mean, because I realize they are separate companies and they're supposed to be running things themselves, but to know that there's that on-site, you called it the ongoing consulting that is available there for their support. That probably helps you sleep better at night, knowing that somebody's there checking and making sure the brand is protected. But as a franchisee, I think it'd be good to know that they're
Yeah,
there for ongoing help.
for sure. Like I said, when I was a franchisee and I had questions or things like that, I got answers, but probably not the answer that I was looking for. And certain things were just like off limits. It was like, hey, you figure that out. Oh yeah, you're having a staffing problem. You figure it out.
Mhm.
And again, everything that I've learned, I've took it and just probably looked at it from my point of view and said, if I would have had this could have probably went. I probably wouldn't have made that mistake. So now, because I've done that, I put people in position to say, make sure that we're there for our franchisees as much as possible.
Great. Well, from a growth planning standpoint, is there sort of a controlled growth plan in your mind where you want to go? And is there a reason for that? I asked because obviously you started Philadelphia, New Jersey, but then you told me about this person opening franchises in Katy, Texas. So that was a big jump. Was there a reason? Do you decide on what markets you want to go into? And if so, how do you decide that?
Yeah. So from a growth strategy perspective, I mean, we definitely want to, grow locally, but again, this ultimately the goal is to expand to an international brand, not just in the United States, but international. And it's the Houston location. If somebody reaches out, they'll, ask, hey, inquire about a franchise. And we say, you know what, when we looked at Houston and the distributors that we use, so we know we're good there. And that's only one. I got two locations I'm doing in Houston, by the way. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but it's more so just understanding the market and doing the demographics and just doing all of the research. And if it seems like a good fit, then we'll pull a trigger. But yeah, we're looking at Houston, Nashville, and Boston.
And how did you come with the idea that what you really see happening here is as you saturate some markets here to then go international? How did that decision come, and have you given thought to how that might work?
So yes, I have. And it's just when you think about, what we're serving and things like that, and you do travel international, I think they would love it. So I'm gonna try it. I wanna do London first.
Wow. Big step, and I hope that that works well. It really should. I was really pleased with some of the experiences I had when I was doing restaurant development and restaurant advisement to companies that were growing for years. I had a company doing that, and it was always challenging to get to work with operators in other countries, but a ton of fun. And yes, American brands worked well in Middle East, Central America, South America, most of Europe. I mean, brands from America, especially if you can connect with the right operator there,
Right.
then yeah, that seems like American brands are very attractive in countries outside of America.
But how did that work for you when you were dealing with the brands that were from America going international? Like, how's that process?
Well, I was working with the franchisees there with the brands that came from the United States. There were difficulties sometimes with purveyor relationships, consistency of product. That was always a challenge. Adjusting to the local customer profile. Like for example, in the Middle East, one of the concepts I got to work with was the Fuddruckers hamburger brand. But the idea of the building your own burger, which is so much fun and worked, in the United States, in Saudi Arabia didn't work. People didn't understand that. They wanted to order, get a completed product, and deliver it to the table. See, so that requires some systemic adjustment, training. And so that's what we were up to our elbows in, which was how to keep the brand, consistent and yet adjust to the local adjustments. You'll find those, and it'll be purveyor related. It'll be consumer demand. Now, some countries are going to be easier than others, but again, everywhere I went, some of the most popular American brands were there, and people loved it. You would see Chili's throughout the Middle East, and some of their busiest units were there. I remember I was there when the Cheesecake Factory opened. Lord have mercy. Crazy. Yes. Yeah. Crazy. So anyway, yes, that's how we had to handle it. You got to be boots on the ground. You got to work through the adjustments to make sure that, it works for the people that you're serving, and the customers vary, obviously, once you get into different countries. But yeah, you'll have, obviously it's not your very next step, but when you get there, yeah, that'll be just part of the research you'll do. I think saturating Texas is a good idea. That's such a big market. I mean, obviously from a geography standpoint, it's not at all close. It's not like Philly, New Jersey, cool, let's go to Texas. So it's a bit of a jump, but it's a large market to saturate. So good luck with that. Can we spend a couple minutes on marketing support? Is the marketing that you do with local limited time offers or annual marketing, are those the kinds of things that you're doing for support to the franchisees too? Or so far, are they doing marketing on their own?
Yeah, so the LTOs, that's through the franchise. Then we also do, franchising from a national standpoint. However, the franchisee is also open to, doing their own local marketing, which I've found that to be very successful when the franchisee can kind of get their own local marketing team and, use their local influencers and things like that. That's been pretty successful as well.
Got it. Yes, I think local community rules. So if the franchisees have that ability, that makes sense too.
Yeah.
So how are you reacting to some of the current, industry challenges that we're hearing with things like tight labor market? You're expanding, right now, but a lot of times I'm hearing it's so hard to afford good locations. Franchisees are tripping over, occupancy costs increasing. Once they get over that, then they're faced with opening costs, and construction and design and equipment are still stupidly high. Is this the kind of stuff you're facing, or is it getting better?
No, that is some of the things that I am facing. In a nutshell, it's the nature of the business, right? And you just have to figure it out. But yeah, the cost of real estate is definitely going up. The cost of labor is definitely, it's going up. But again, you just look into, you might make a little less, but again, building with somebody that's great, it'll all pay off. But those are challenges that I do face on a daily basis.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, at least the price of eggs is getting more reasonable again, because I would imagine you breakfast guys were just beating yourselves, with a 2x4 every time you were taking a look at those invoices.
Yeah, it was a thing where with the eggs, we were doing like, an extra 30 cent we had to, add on to the bill for just the eggs. So it's great to see that the prices are coming down.
And that kind of gets me into the next industry thing I'd like your opinion on, and that is the add-ons. As people grow into different states, and a lot of states have different rules now on labor and minimum wages, I'm seeing sort of a split between people choosing to adjust their menu and menu price because they have a higher labor market, or some are just adding to the ticket a labor surcharge or whatever it's called, living wage adjustment charge. And so far, I see people pretty split. Some people feel like I want it on the ticket, let the customers see it. Some people are split going, I don't want to add extra charges because I don't want customers to be mad. How do you see you and your concept fitting there?
I mean, again, depending on location, which, we have the flexibility to do and not do. But, as far as that overall adding the living expense onto a check and things like that, personally, I've never seen it. I've heard about it, but I don't think I I would probably not rather do that to the customer. And, I would try to figure out another creative way to figure that cost out. But I couldn't imagine going out to dinner and I'm paying 18% on top of everything else fee for the staff. But again, from a business perspective, how can you afford the staff if you're not making it? So I get both perspectives. I would just try to be a little bit more creative.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Yeah, I've only seen it a couple of times, but it's talked about a lot. And I think I'd agree with you. I think the challenge is going to be how to creatively roll things into the cost of business rather than having extra line items that makes the customer ask a question. What the heck? What the heck?
But we must do that in California, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you obviously, since you have the express location, which is, quick service and drive through, but then you have two full service locations. So that means you're probably operating on both sides of like the tip pooling, where Sunrise Social, I imagine, since there's servers on the floor, like you said, they're probably paid at the waitress, what we call sub minimum. And then the tip is sort of restricted as to how that gets passed out. Whereas in an express unit with counter service, and if everyone is above the minimum wage, tips can be separated differently. It's hard to find a company that really has the same concept but is operating both. So do you have an opinion? Which way seems to work better with staff? Where you can collect it and pool with everybody, or the server and then the tip pool to just the service related staff?
I think with the express, again, you don't have that full service, so it's not like tip, driven. And that to me seems to work a little bit more than the Sunrise Social with that staff.
Okay. Okay. And that might be one more reason why a lot of analysts are seeing us finding growth concepts moving more that direction. I had a previous conversation where we thought some of that growth in that direction was also because I can be slightly smaller, which means opening cost, occupancy can be a little less. I can maybe employ fewer people as well, making operations simpler, labor market a little bit easier to adjust to. But the idea of the ongoing share with everyone kind of a gratuity program, that makes things a little bit easier too.
Yeah. Again, there's pros and cons to both,
Mm-hmm. Hey, but this has been a joy learning about your concept. I love the Sunrise Social. I love breakfast brunch. I think you're in a really solid market segment that can grow. Flipping this to the express thing really has me interested. I like that. And I really wish you well with the 24/7. More successful 24/7 concepts, I think, are needed. And so I really hope that works out really, really well for you. But before we go, let people know how they can learn more about Sunrise Social, Sunrise Social Express, or find you. Is there a website or an email? Anything you'd like to share?
Sure. The website is www.own, O-W-N, the letter A, sunrise.com. And then on Instagram, you got Sunrise Social Philly or Sunrise Social PA, Sunrise Social NJ, and
Okay.
then Sunrise Social Express.
That's wonderful. Everybody check them out. I mean, obviously, if you're in Philly or New Jersey, you're there, you're eating, but it sounds like if you're in Texas, they're coming to you soon and hopefully other places too. Aaron, thank you again so much. I wish you the best with your expansion. Love the idea, the concept. Thanks again for today. Everyone, that's Aaron Anderson, and we are wrapping up another segment of Corner Booth. I hope I get to see you on another episode real soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thank you for joining us on the Corner Booth. We'll be back next Tuesday with more inspiration, insights, and industry best practices to help you engage your team, delight your guests, and grow your business.